Why would you mass import millions of people every year who don't care about those things and in fact want to import their own third world culture here to America? My parents didn't sacrifice everything to come here so that we could live in a banana republic that looks like Duterte under the Philippines.
So as we discussed with Andrew Torba of Gab.com in our last video, social media censorship of conservatives is only getting worse as we move closer to the presidential election this November. One prominent conservative is coming off of a brief suspension on Twitter for supporting law enforcement during the Black Lives Matter riots. I wish I could tell you what she wrote, but I'm sure it would get us flagged for even repeating it. Which is why you need to sign up for libertyhangout.tv right now to watch this full interview and find out what it was that Michelle Malkin tweeted that got her banned. Over the last few decades, Michelle Malkin has been one of the fiercest defenders of right-wing values. She's a columnist, an author, a public speaker, and an entrepreneur. But most importantly, she's a mother, and she's recently become the target of a smear campaign, not by the left, but from the establishment conservatives for refusing to bow down to the mob. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Michelle.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Kaitlin. It's great to join you.
Guys, I can tell you right now that this interview is going to be way too spicy for YouTube. So please visit libertyhangout.tv if you want to watch this interview in full. But before we dive into some of the topics that might be more spicy, can you tell us what your thoughts are on all of the riots going on across the country? And if you think the Trump administration did enough to stop the violence.
When it first broke out, I said, I've seen this movie before. And I have. In fact, it's how I cut my teeth in journalism when I was about your age. In my early 20s, I was an editorial writer and columnist at the Los Angeles Daily News. And I was hired maybe 3 or 4 months after the LA riots. And my career really took off when I questioned so many of the social justice narratives that laid the groundwork for the riots in the aftermath of the Rodney King incident, the lies that have been told over and over again about the police, and about the supposed institutional racism of our country. And over again, whether it was in 1992, or 2012, 2014, 2016, every time we've had these outbreaks, these paroxysms of violence, the people who perpetrate them get rewarded, not punished. And it's just a perpetual recipe, right, for more and more violence, for more and more ashes to be strewn across the country. And to answer your question about President Trump, I was fuming that first week of the riots. He was nowhere to be found. He had an opportunity on the Friday press conference where he gave a bizarre little statement about pushing back against the WHO and some vague action that they were going to take against a small percentage of Chinese foreign student visa holders. It was so tone deaf. He ran away from questions bombarded at him by the press regarding the by then it was 5 days of chaos and anarchy. Then he bunkered down for the weekend, and it wasn't until the following Monday, which would have been this past Monday, that he started tweeting in all capital letters, "Law and order, great," right? And I think what it does is it exposes this battle that's been ongoing since day one between his instincts and the rest of the swamp that has really kind of overflown into the West Wing.
Obviously, one of the biggest issues that you're most passionate about is social media censorship. And in fact, you've been so passionate about the issue that we know that it's led to some contention among other notable right-wing organizations because you refused to stand with your colleagues when they called for the deplatforming of other right-wingers. But before we get into that situation specifically, can you tell us why you've been so passionate about fighting against censorship online?
So much of my own success has been because just like Kaitlin mentions, Justin, I didn't ask for permission. I planted my flag in the internet world in 1999 was when I had my first eponymous website. And then when the blogosphere took off and there was software that was freely available that made it much easier to sort of conquer that medium, I was self-funded. I did not have big billion-dollar philanthropists. And so my heart has always been with the grassroots, citizen journalism. I started a couple of my other websites at around the same time that Andrew Breitbart established Breitbart.com. And it was such an exciting and promising time to sort of operate under the impression that our free speech was unfettered and that the cream would rise to the top. And then after I started Twitchy, which is a Twitter curation aggregation site, in 2012, I started to notice that hashtags were starting to get suppressed. My follower count was frozen. And in those early days, we called it Twitter Gulag was the hashtag, that people would be targeted by a small army of left-wing smear merchants and trolls. And they would organize and they tried to pick off people who are not prominent, right? It was sort of low-hanging fruit for them because these are people who would have no way to fight back. And, we called that out 8 years ago, and it's just become more systematic. It's just become, more of like a formalized system for the left to pick us off. And then there's just sort of a more larger principle at work, which is I always found it to be an incredible blessing that I could make a living running my mouth off or, dashing something off on a computer and just boop, putting it out into the ether. And it enrages me and it saddens me that there are so many young people for whom that opportunity has been completely denied simply because they have views that go against the grain of both the left and Con Inc. So that's my motivation. And I would say that particularly over the last 6 or 7 months, especially, Justin, it's just clear to me that at this stage in my career, I need to do everything I can to help the next generation. I'm going to be 50 in October. I've spent more than half of my life doing this. And the mistake that a lot of people in the conservative movement have made is that they don't invest in young people. They don't invest in the future. And to the extent that they have, they're pouring tens of millions of dollars down the drain in Con Inc. groups that, whose first instinct is to capitulate to the leftists that they say they fight.
Talking about, open borders and Con Inc. and everything, you wrote a whole book about it last year titled Open Borders Inc., which everyone watching can go get it right now on Amazon. And I think the strong stances you take on immigration sometimes confuse people since you're Asian. Yeah. Why, as the daughter of Filipino immigrants, are you so passionate about closing our borders?
Well, I only have one homeland. And I think probably that's what confuses a lot of people because so many minorities who operate in the public square don't have loyalty to one country. And, this is supposed to be what assimilation meant. I have no allegiance to the Philippines. I was born here. I was raised here. I was raised to appreciate and ingrained in founding principles. I don't apologize for the historic American nation. And it's bizarre what we're seeing now, just to connect it to all of the kneeling and genuflecting, not just of the usual suspects. Okay, it's one thing for Jacob Frey, the mayor of Minneapolis, to kneel in front of George Floyd's casket, weeping, on display with the theatrics. But this morning, I tweeted out a picture that was on Ted Cruz's Instagram of George Floyd with he's now sprouted angel wings. And, Ted Cruz sounding like Ben Crump. What is wrong with you? And so whether it's with regard to those issues or with regard to American sovereignty, I've had increasing clarity. And that's largely because, as the daughter of Filipino immigrants who sacrificed everything to get here, it is in my self-interest to have a functional immigration system that is, yes, picky, yes, discriminatory, and for conservatives especially to think about what the electoral consequences of mass migration are on their party and on the agenda that they say they embrace. So you care about guns, you care about abortion, you care about taxes and regulation and socialism sucking. Well, why would you, right? Why would you mass import millions of people every year who don't care about those things and in fact want to import their own third world culture here to America? My parents didn't sacrifice everything to come here so that we could live in a banana republic that looks like Duterte under the Philippines, although Duterte is doing some pretty good things, I have to say. In any case, so the idea that there's some sort of hypocrisy in me calling for stricter limits, calling for overall mass migration freezes and immigration moratorium, in fact, it's the most rational, self-interested policy position to take. But now here we come back to conservatism Inc.'s pathology. Because you'll see that for like the longest time, and this is still the case, many of these people, if they're not already bought off by Open Borders Inc. forces, like fine, Coke and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and these types, okay, we get it. We get your financial interest. But you take so many of these rank and file Republicans who say, oh, well, we're not against legal immigration. We're just against illegal, as long as they come here the right way. And it's like, well, yeah, but in how many numbers and where from? And they just are completely stumped. And this is in large part a problem that Con Inc. Cooked up to prevent these people from asking these questions or, having it even occur to them. And so that's why the Groypers were so important, because it forced people like Charlie Kirk to have to confront it. And now he sounds like Nick Fuentes every day.
That interview was so cool. You guys are definitely going to want to watch our entire interview with Michelle Malkin, and you can do that right now by signing up at libertyhangout.tv. I love Michelle because she is in a lot of ways like me. She's honest, she's bold, and she makes no apologies for her beliefs. If the conservative movement needs anything right now, it's leaders who aren't afraid to stand up for what they believe in and won't give in to the outrage mob. This was probably one of the most uplifting discussions you'll ever hear, and to do that, go to libertyhangout.tv right now, where you can not only watch our interview with Michelle, but immediately gain access to exclusive shows from myself and the team. We'll see you guys over there. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to like and share, hit that subscribe button, and click the notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos. If you want to support my work, you can become a patron at patreon.com/Kaitlin Bennett and receive cool perks like an autographed photo from me in the mail each month. Or you can go to KaitlinBennett.org and get up to 75% off and free shipping on supplements and merchandise to support my work and start living a healthy life. My favorite product is Turbo Force because it gives me all the energy I need to make it through a long day of doing interviews. There are tons of other health supplements you can choose from to keep your body healthy during these uncertain times. And check out the website banned.video to see uncensored content from conservative creators that have been erased from social media.